How are we doing there, boys and girls? Manthieus here. Welcome back to another video. So today we're going to take a little bit of a look at blacksmithing. Blacksmithing has undergone quite some changes in the last few weeks of beta, but I'm recording this as late in the day as I possibly can. So hopefully there should be no more changes between now and the expansion going live. But I will keep a little pinned comment on the go down in the description, or below the description in the comment section, of any significant changes to this guide, if of course they are spotted, but please let me know if you spot anything that changes. Blacksmithing is not actually too complicated to level up. We do most of it by crafting the gear. Crafting gear, you craft a few pieces of these. Don't expect to be making it at any significant quality just yet. That's not important to us. The important thing is just getting this bar as full as we possibly can. Before we get too deep into it, I should let you know that we get to about skill 60, roughly about skill 60, and then some options open up to you. The path to skill 100 has a few different variations you can take. The materials I'm going to talk about today, if you want to go to the auction house and grab some of these ready to do your leveling, these are materials that will get you to around the skill 60 mark. There is a expensive way to get to about skill 80. There is then a slow and steady way to get further to 100, or there's the option of work orders, which obviously shouldn't really require you to provide many materials. But what are the materials we're going to need? First one, echoing flux. Echoing flux is a vendor reagent. Maybe don't be buying this off the auction house, but you can get this from your local vendor that sells profession goods. He should be standing pretty much next to the trainer in Dornogal. Bismuth is our regular ore. This should be very abundant by the time you come to level your blacksmithing, and if you've done any mining in the War Within, you'll have stumbled across a bunch of this stuff. We're going to need roughly 500 of this for the early parts of leveling. And then some iron claw ore. We don't need much iron claw ore. We only need 10 to craft a handful of things later on. But you should be aware of its existence at least. And then there's some crystalline powder. This is sort of a rare elemental type material that is gathered by herbalists and miners as well, but should be readily available on the auction house. A couple of other materials to note that won't be too important for the early stages of leveling, but blacksmiths are going to care about them. We have the null stone. This is a very rare material that is acquired by miners. Expect these to be quite expensive. My money is going to be on a couple of thousand gold a piece, at least for the beginning of the expansion. These are quite difficult to find. Aquarite is the alternative to iron claw ore. You're going to need some of this if you're crafting alloys. We're going to unlock a few different variations of alloys. You're going to need some aquarite for crafting alloys, but we're not going to be crafting too many of those whilst leveling. And then there's two more reagents, profaned tinderbox and ringing deeps ingots, which are actually found mostly by treasure hunting in and around the zones of Khazalgar. Expect to find these on the auction house, or you might find some of these on your travels. If you spot a treasure, pick it up. You never know, you might get lucky. We're going to use these later on in blacksmithing, but not really for the purpose of leveling. So let's get into the actual leveling guide then. Let's look at what the process is to get from skill 1 to 100. If you'd want to follow along with a written variation, all of this information and more is available in my Goblin Guide to the War Within. This is available to my Patreons, my Gold Goblins over on Patreon. I'm quite proud of this, it's taken me a long time to put this together, but it's turned into quite a fully fledged document on all things that you might care about goblineering in the War Within. So I'll leave a link in the description for that down below. We're going to start off though, we're going to make some of these basic core alloys. We're going to need a bunch of these, but we want to craft enough of these to get up to skill 10 to begin with. Most of the time when I do my little crafting guides, I try to go the route of keeping the material cost as cheap as possible. As mentioned, you're rarely producing anything of particularly high quality whilst leveling, so you just want to make it for as cheap as you possibly can. And if you can then use it for your profession later on, or you can sell it for something on the auction house, you can recuperate some of these costs. But I try to keep the cost of things to a minimum for whilst we're leveling. Let's get this to skill 10. You might need to craft one or two more. You may have noticed that it wasn't guaranteeing skill points every time. Let's learn some new recipes. And now we're going to dive straight into starting to make some of the gear. We're going to start making some of the boots to begin with. We're going to craft up 3 sets of these. From skill 16 up until 20, we'll craft a couple of the breastplates because this has now stopped giving us skill points. And we will also, at skill 15, be able to learn our 2 new variations of alloy. These we're not going to craft much of right now. They're a little bit more expensive. They start using rarer materials and more of the rare drop materials, and so they're not very optimal to be crafting at this point, but we will be crafting a lot of them in the future, so you know, maybe take a little bit of a look at what materials are needed for these, some future planning. From skill 20 to all the way to skill 30, we're going to make some of the van bracers. We're going to need enough materials to craft 5 sets of these, so let's make an extra couple of 4 alloys so we can get those on the go. Right, and craft all 5 of those to get up to skill 30. When we hit skill 25, we'll unlock our first specialization. You unlock your first at skill 25, your second spectry at skill 50, your third at 60, and your fourth and final one at skill 75. Getting the third unlock should be relatively straightforward following on this little guide today. If you are wishing to push to 75 plus, you'll need to do some of the more endgame optional paths to get further along, but I'll talk about those a little bit in a minute. We don't need to actually unlock anything just yet. We are going to unlock a spectry specifically once we get to skill 60 for one of the options, but right now you can just keep powering on forward. From skill 30 to 40, we're going to make some of the helms. We're going to need some more core alloys, and we're going to look at crafting 5 of these as well. So let's get some more of those made. You could actually, in theory, produce a whole bunch of these core alloys right at the very beginning. I tend to just make them as and when I need them. The materials I quoted you at the beginning is inclusive of what you'll need to make these intermediate alloys, even though we're not getting skill points for these. You can make some of these as and when you need them. There is one thing that players do sometimes like to do when leveling, which is to craft 1 of every single item. This isn't particularly efficient for leveling up, but it is something you want to do back. You know, you'll want to backtrack later on once you've got some better skill and craft 1 of everything, because you are going to get first time craft bonuses, which are going to be quite important. They give you artisan's acuity, this little currency you see up here. They're also going to give you the knowledge points that you're going to need to then go and spend in your professions, become the master of something. But yeah, backtracking is something you should probably do after leveling, because at least then there's the chance you might make something better than quality 1 and have a more successful time selling it to somebody else. From skill 40 up until 46, we're going to make 3 pairs of these leg plates. We're going to need a few more of these alloys. These leg plates stop guaranteeing skill after 3 crafts, so we're only going to make 3 of these. I'll make a couple of extra ingots to be safe. Sorry, alloys. So as you can see so far, we've pretty much leveled without doing anything but touching the main sort of leveling gear set. We are going to make a couple of weapons now. We're going to make some of the Iron Claw Knuckles once we reach 46. These stop guaranteeing skill points, yet the Knuckles will still give us a couple of bonuses. And this is where we start using our first little bit of Iron Claw ore. Considering we only need to use quality 1 materials, these should still be pretty cheap. But now we're going to hit skill 50. Skill 50 will technically give you access to 2 out of the 4 spec trees. But we want to get to at least skill 60, considering we get given this forged framework ability first. Our options, now we've hit skill 50, start to slow down in terms of what's going to guarantee us skill. Sanctified alloys, you're going to look at crafting these to the best of your ability soon. These are sort of your endgame alloy. These are going to go into a lot of the final endgame pieces of crafted gear. So maybe looking at getting sort of pretty good at making these is going to be a useful. tool for you. As you can see at the moment, we're not going to be able to have much success crafting them, but they are going to guarantee us skill points if we wish. Our other option, which we're going to use to get from at least skill 50 to 60, is this forged framework. Let me get 10 alloys on the go just while I talk about this next little section, because this forged framework is an interesting one. I'm not convinced that when the game goes live, this will be available on a trainer. And this is mostly because it's actually possible to learn this via a spec tree. We go into means of production, look at the full tree. We don't need to unlock it to look at the full tree. But there's the frameworks node, and you may notice on learning this specialization, learn to craft forged framework. It's a bit weird that it's in 2 spots, which makes me wonder if it was ever meant to really be on the trainer or not. But if it stays this way once the game goes live, it's a cheap one to craft, and at this point it's guaranteeing us skill points, so we absolutely might as well. If for whatever reason the game goes live and this isn't available to craft, you might start looking at making some of these sanctified alloys. They're going to be a little bit more expensive. They're using the rarer materials. But this might be a good candidate to possibly look at using some concentration on and using some higher quality materials to try and get some quality 2 or even quality 3s using your concentration. But for now, we're going to make 10 of these forged frameworks, considering I can only show you the leveling path as it is right now. And we'll hit skill 60. This will stop giving us skill points, and then we have a few options on how to go the final hurdle. This is where we might want to look at unlocking one of the spec trees. There's an item here called Ever-Burning Ignition. If we open this in the spec trees, the Ever-Burning Forge is its own spec tree. This is a little buff that blacksmiths get access to that's going to give them a boost to their multicraft, their ingenuity, and their resourcefulness. It's not super important to spec into this early in the expansion, but it is something you're going to want to do at some point, because those resourcefulness bonuses and those multi-craft bonuses especially are going to really help you with your long-term crafting costs. So you're going to want to pay attention to this a little bit, and there is the option to get some guaranteed skill points from skill 60 onwards. This technically gives you skill points all the way to skill 100. So there is the possibility for you to just mass produce this over the next few days. The reason I say the next few days is because there's a little bit of a cooldown on the amount of times you can use this ever-burning ignition. You can see here, I get an additional craft in 2 hours time. You can stack up to 5 crafts. So the likelihood is you'll be able to log on for the first time that day on your blacksmith, and you'll be able to get 5 skill points from 5 crafts relatively quickly. But then you'll have to wait 2 hours to get a charge back before you can press the button again. It's a slow and steady way to work your way to skill 100, but this does go all the way to 100. It does go yellow and it does go green, so it's not unfortunately exactly 40 times you need to press the button to go from 60 to 100, more like 100 times, but at least it is a path to 100% completion. Sanctified alloy is another option for you once we reach skill 60. This is already yellow. This is already not going to guarantee us skill points. But as I pre-mentioned, if you start throwing some higher quality materials in here and you start getting your profession tools and gear sorted, even the green ones are going to be really helpful to you at this point. You should, with some better quality materials and a little bit of tools under your belt, be able to push to quality 2, and then you can choose to use concentration to make quality 3s, which are likely to be the most valuable ones, and you should have a good time selling those and even making some nice profit off them, I would imagine, at the beginning of the expansion. This is quite an expensive way. There's no cooldown on this like there is with Ever-Burning Ignition, but of course these go grey at skill 80. You can only get to skill 80 maximum with sanctified alloys. If you want to craft a bunch of these, get to skill 80 and then use your Ever-Burning Ignition for the final chapter, for the final 20 points, that's an option. Or at this point, you're going to have to start looking at your sort of more traditional work order type crafts. You're going to look to specialize into either armor crafting or weapon crafting. Very traditional for most blacksmiths. But at this point, you're going to have to start hunting down those work orders. There's going to be a bit of a delay on both weapons and armor from real players. But something that has been added in the War Within is patron orders. These were initially called NPC orders. These are not from real players. These are from notable characters within the game. These are sort of NPC fake orders. Occasionally you will spot an endgame piece of gear, and in most cases they will provide the sparks needed, meaning that you can actually fulfill a couple of these orders if you unlock the recipes even before the season launches. So there might be a few opportunities via those patron orders to get 3, 6, 9, 10, 12 skill points towards completion, slowly and steadily chipping away. But of course, it's random. It's a bit of random, and you know, random will sometimes work in your favor, sometimes it will not. But that, boys and girls, is about as far as you can get with blacksmithing in one sitting. If you want to throw some gold at it, Sanctified Alloys will get you to skill 80, will unlock you that 4th tree. But with the price of things like Nullstone, it's going to be quite a lot of gold, so please be aware of that. Ever-burning ignition is your slow and steady route to 100. Make sure you log in maybe every couple of hours or at least once a day to craft a few of these. It is going to use Artisan's Acuity though, which is the only negative of going this route. Your Artisan's Acuity is going to be very valuable to you in other places. Namely, you need Artisan's Acuity to help craft your profession tools and accessories. You also need Artisan's Acuity to buy some of the knowledge point books from some of the vendors out in the Kazalgar regions. So that should help you as much as I can help you with right now with blacksmithing, getting it to 100. Once you have reached skill 100, start getting your profession tools and accessories in order. Start having a little bit of a look at the spec trees, and that should get you up and running with blacksmithing nice and efficiently. So I hope that was helpful, boys and girls. Once again, all of this information, the full written breakdown of your skill path, plus what to do after you have finished leveling in terms of how you go and get your knowledge points, and a deeper dive into things like the spec trees. This is all available in my Goblin Guide to the War Within. And over the next few days, weeks and months, I will slowly be turning most of that information into YouTube content here for you guys as well. Link for that is in the description down below. Give the video a like if you enjoyed it, boys and girls. Consider subscribing if you're new around here, and I'll catch you all next time. Peace.